Hello guys, and welcome to another booktube video. Before we get into the video, I just kind of want to touch on the obvious. I am in a whole different setting. I said this in my last video, but if you haven't watched it, Michael and I have actually moved in with my mom into a spare bedroom. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment and we loved it, but our rent skyrocketed, and then we were actually in the process of buying a house and building a house, but the interest rate skyrocketed as well, and so we kind of dropped out of that and decided to do something else and save a little bit of money. So we are here temporarily for a few months, but that's where I am. She has a beautiful house and we are very happy to be here. So I just kind of want to address that because my videos are going to be in different places. Okay, but for today's book video, I'm going to be talking about my January wrap up, so what I read in January and what I rate them and what I think, and then also I'm going to be sharing my February hopeful TBR because I'm reading all Pink books for the month of February, and I wanted to let you guys know what they are in case you wanted to join and read along with me, because I feel like reading Pink books is super fun, and a few of these are about Valentine's Day, so I thought that would be fun as well. But let's go ahead and get into what I read for January. I was only able to read 5 books this month, less than I wanted to, but we were in the process of moving, and Michael and I both have been super busy with work too, so I just wasn't able to read as much. But the first books that I'm going to talk about them together, is the Inheritance Game series, and I have a whole vlog of me reading this whole series, so I will link it here, but you can kind of go and see the detailed in-depth of what I thought about these books. But basically I gave them 3 stars. They were very underwhelming for me. I really wanted to like these books. I know a lot of people really like them. This is basically about a girl named Avery, and she inherits a huge inheritance from this random man that she doesn't know, and this is like billions and billions of dollars. And so there is just some things that she has to do, like she has to go live in this house with the family, and so the whole series is about her trying to figure out why she was chosen. So there's a bunch of clues and games and riddles, and I just thought that this book was going to be really fun, trying to get through all those riddles, and that you as the reader were going to get to do that as well. It was not like that at all, and I feel like it was unnecessarily convoluted in how everything came together and how everyone was related and involved in the story, and I still enjoyed reading it. It was a fun read, but it was just, again, very underwhelming, and I don't know. Some people give this 5 stars, but I was just not impressed. Also with the writing, I feel like it was slightly immature. It is YA, but I usually like YA books, but I just feel like, I don't know. That plot could have been done so much better. If you want a more detailed look, you can watch that video. It is also spoiler free, so if you haven't read these books, you can watch the whole video and I won't give anything too much away. The next book that I did read though is a very awesome book. This is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, and I gave this 4 stars. This is the same author who wrote A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and I gave that series 5 stars. I loved that series so much, and I definitely recommend that if you love like a murder mystery. And again, this is another murder mystery, but this one takes place in kind of one setting over 8 hours, so you're kind of reading it real time as the characters are going through this. But this is about a group of 6 teenagers, and they're on spring break, and they're traveling down to Florida in an RV, and all of a sudden their tires all get slashed out, and they're trying to figure out why someone is trying to hunt them down and keep them stranded. And so secrets come out, and only 5 survive out of the 6. And this was just a very fast read, very, very good book. It doesn't ever get too dark. There's no spice. This is YA again, so I really recommend this book. It's an easy read. I love Holly Jackson. I will read anything that she puts out. Very good book, 4 stars. I couldn't give it 5 stars just because I gave Good Girl's Guide to Murder 5 stars, and I just couldn't do the same with that one because I love it so much. The next book that I read, and the last book that I read for January, is Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and this was my first Emily Henry book, and I really enjoyed this, mainly because it was all about books and bookish people. But this is about a woman named Nora, and she is a workaholic in New York, and she is a literary agent, and her sister decide to go on a sister vacation into this really small town. Nora ends up running into Charlie, who is one of her work enemies, and he also is in the literary world, and they just kind of clash, and she's trying to figure out how she could possibly run into him in this really, really small town when they both work in New York. And so you're kind of trying to figure that out along with them, and I feel like their communication and their banter is just really funny and really perfect. There is a little bit of spice in this book, but I felt like it wasn't too much, so if you're okay with a little bit, I would suggest this one. But yeah, I really love this book. It was a really good romance read. I was supposed to read The Bride Collector because I did a like pulling out of my jar TBR of what I read for January, and I had just read some dark books, so I started reading The Bride Collector, and I had to DNF it because it was just too a little bit too much for me, a little bit too dark. Maybe if I would have read it at a different time, I would have been okay with it, but yeah, it was a little much for me, so I ended up picking up something very lighthearted and fun. I gave this a 4 stars, if I didn't say that. Now I'm going to get into all the Pink books that I want to read for February, and I'm very excited about this. And again, I wanted to let y'all know what they are now in case you want to read some of these. But the first one that I'm going to talk about is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter, and this is the same author who wrote Better Than the Movies, which I gave 5 stars, and I loved that book, so I'm excited to get to this as well. This is another YA book, so I love that. And this is actually about Valentine's Day and it going on a loop, like you keep reliving Valentine's Day every day, which I've read one other book that was like looped, and I did not like it at all. So I'm interested to see if I like this one. I think I will because it's Lynn Painter, but I'm kind of interested to see how she's going to do it differently from the other book that I read. It was by a different author, but I just didn't enjoy the other book. So we will see, but again, I want to read everything that she's written because I love her writing. The next book that I want to try to get to is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, and this author also wrote Love Hypothesis, which I haven't read, but I've heard that a lot of people loved that book and it was very sciencey. This one's sciencey as well, which I'm kind of nervous about because I'm an English words girl. I don't really care for science, but everyone loves these books, so I feel like I will too. And I'm just gonna try to read the back of this so that I can explain it a little bit better because I don't know too much what it's about. Like an avenging purple-haired Jedi bringing balance to the mansplained universe, B something. I'm not even trying to pronounce this last name. Let me show it to you so I can make myself feel better about it. Okay, yeah, I'm not even trying to pronounce that. But B lives by a simple code. What would Marie Curie do? If NASA offered Marie her dream neuroengineering project, she would accept without hesitation. Duh. But the mother of modern physics never had to co-lead with Levi Ward. Sure, Levi has soul-piercing eyes, and sure, he caught her in his powerfully corded arms like a romance novel hero when she accidentally damseled in distress on her first day in the lab. But Levi made his feelings toward B clear in grad school. Arch enemies work best when employed in their own galaxies far away. And then also it goes on to say that he's kind of softening up towards her as they are working together. So obviously this is going to be a work romance, and I haven't read too many of those, so I'm interested to see how this one goes, even with all the science and hard pronunciation of words. The next book is The No Show by Beth O'Leary, and again, I haven't read any by her, but I'm also going to read a little bit of the back of this one. But it says, Siobhan is a quick-tempered life coach with way too much on her plate. Miranda is a tree surgeon, used to being treated as just one of the guys on the job. Jane is soft-spoken volunteer for the local charity shop with zero sense of self-worth. These 3 women are strangers who have only one thing in common. They've all been stood up on the same day, the very worst day to be stood up, Valentine's Day. And unbeknownst to them, they've all been stood up by the same man. So that sounds like it's going to be kind of funny, and again, it's about Valentine's Day, so I feel like this is the perfect time of the year to read this book. Again, kind of a cheesy romance, but with a little twist. And hopefully, if he ends up being like a bad guy and really standing up all these women, hopefully they get some revenge on him. The next book that I really want to get to this month, and it may be the culprit of why I don't get to all these other ones and read all 6, is this honker right here, which is A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the 3rd book in the ACOTAR series, and I gave 5 stars to the first and second one, so I know I'm gonna love this one. I have heard a few people either say that this is either their favorite or their least favorite in the whole series. I think I'm gonna really like this one because I know it's very plot heavy and not so romance heavy, which I like the romance side, and I know it will be in this too, but I know that this one is a lot about them like strategizing for war and things like that, which I think I will find very interesting. And because the world has already been built and we know a little bit more about the whole fantasy realm that they're in, I feel like they can get really into depth about what they are going to do and how they're going to go forward in the story. I can't give too much away about what this is about because if you haven't read the first or second book, I can't give too much away. But I'm getting to this month. It's pink, it's beautiful, and I have been waiting to read this actually for February because I wanted to read all pink books and I couldn't not read that one in February. The next book that I'm hoping to get to is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager, and I actually haven't read one of his books yet. I had The House Across the Lake, but Dexter decided to rip that up, so I haven't been able to read that yet, but I've heard great things by this author, and I love a good mystery, and I feel like this is one that I'm really gonna eat up and want to read all his books. This one says, after responding to a mysterious newspaper advertisement, Jules Larson gets a job as an apartment sitter at the Bartholomew, one of the Manhattan's most famous and secretive buildings. At first, the extravagance of the Bartholomew feels like a lucky break for recently heartbroken and penniless Jules, who has been haunted by misfortune for most of her life. But when a fellow apartment sitter in the building goes missing, Jules begins to suspect there are dark forces at work behind the Bartholomew's glamorous facade. Digging deeper into the building's past, Jules soon realizes that the Bartholomew is more dangerous than she thought, and that escape may be impossible. I hope I'm saying Bartholomew right, but that's kind of how it's spelled, and that's how I read it in my head. But I'm very excited to get to this, and again, I feel like this book is kind of right up my alley. I feel like my favorite books are books like these. Okay, so the last book is one I actually haven't heard anyone ever mention, but I saw it in Barnes & Noble, and I thought it was really pretty, the colors, and it also, I read the inside and it sounded interesting. It says 2 years out of college, Ellie Adler has a job in journalism, older lover in a circle of smart friends. Her beloved father, James, who has children from 3 marriages, unites the family with gentle humor and charisma. But Ellie has always believed she is her father's favorite. When her father suddenly dies, she finds herself devastated by the unexpected loss. Then at the reading of his will, Ellie learns that instead of leaving his prized possession, a baseball that holds emotional resonance for them both, has left her a seemingly ridiculous, even insulting gift. Worse, he's given the baseball to someone no one in the family has ever heard of. In her grief, Ellie wonders who could have possibly meant more to her father than she did. Setting out to track this person down, she learns startling information about who her father really was and who she herself is becoming. So it's similar to the inheritance games in the sense of it is about a will and inheritance, but I'm interested to see how this book actually handles that versus the inheritance games, because I feel like I really like that concept of the mystery of it, and I'm excited to see what they do with that. So this may be the last one I try to get to, just because I feel like I want to read the other books a lot more than this one, but because no one has mentioned this one, it could be like a little gem that I find. So those are the pink books that I want to try to get to this February. If any of those sound interesting to you, go ahead and pick one up and let's read it together. And of course, I will do a February wrap up, so you will get to see what I thought of those. And those were my thoughts on those January books. If you have any other book suggestions or book questions or just comments that you want to put down below, go ahead and do that. I love communicating with you guys through YouTube, TikTok. I also have a TikTok now. Basically, it's just about my YouTube channel and about reading, but you can follow me on Instagram and talk to me there. I love chatting with you guys. But thank you for stopping by my channel, and I hope to see you guys soon.